Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. Peter, there's a very interesting article, and you drew my attention to it, a very interesting article in the Financial Times today. It's based on leaks from the EU Council, and there's a document has been prepared by high-level people within the EU Council about what they're going to do to Hungary if Hungary continues to be obdurate on aid for Ukraine. So we know how the Americans, absolutely determined to get the 60 billion into the hands of Zelensky. They're ready to keep the border open, do anything in order to twist arms in order to get this money to Ukraine. But something similar is taking place in the EU about this 50 billion euros that they want to get into Zelensky's hands. And Hungary is posing an opposition to it. Now, last week we talked about this plan to take away Hungary's voting rights within the EU. The problem
unprecedented, never happened before.
Never happened before, but the problem was that it's quite hard to pull off, and it's going to take a little bit of time because you do have to get some kind of unanimity before you can do that. So the EU has come up with another idea, that is, to paraphrase, I think either Nixon or Kissinger, we're going to make the Chilean economy scream. In order to bring down Salvador Allende. So they say, we're going to make the Hungarian economy scream. And so let's just look at that, what they're actually intending to do to Hungary. And for why? Because Hungary is simply not going along with this plan to get 50 billion euros into the hands of Zelensky. So here, we have the headline in the Financial Times story, which says, Brussels threatens to hit Hungary's economy if Viktor Orban vetoes Ukraine aid. EU strategy aims to spook investors by cutting off funding to Budapest in standoff over 50 billion euro package.
Well, so how are the two connected?
Right, and I think they're saying investors. Now, again, you're explicitly going after civilians, ordinary people.
That's my point.
Yeah. So you're not going, well, we're going to, freeze Orban's bank account, wherever it is. We're actually going to ordinary people. We're going to make sure that no one's going to invest in Hungary. And so
which I think it's essentially a declaration of war.
That's exactly what it is. It says here, first sentence, the EU will sabotage Hungary's economy if Budapest blocks fresh aid to Ukraine at a summit this week. Under a confidential plan, it's not terribly confidential.
I was just going to say, it was never under a confidential plan that was never intended to be confidential.
Drawn up by Brussels that marks a significant escalation in the battle between the EU and its most pro-Russian member state. They always say this.
Pro-Russian.
When all it is, Hungary is pro-Hungarian. Nothing it says is pro-Russian. In a document drawn up by EU officials and seen by the Financial Times, Brussels has outlined a strategy to explicitly target Hungary's economic weaknesses, imperil its currency, and drive a collapse in investor confidence in a bid to hurt, quote, jobs and growth, unquote, if Budapest refuses to lift its veto against the aid to Kiev.
This is like the sanctions against South Africa during apartheid.
Right. But notice, it says, imperil its currency and drive a collapse in investor confidence. You want to inflict suffering on ordinary people in order to do what? What's the plan? That you're trying to have regime change. You're going to cause such suffering, and then they're going to vote against Orban.
We've said it here before, George. Regime change. We've said it here before.
But the problem is that the record of such things are not good, because if you impose sanctions, normally people get very stubborn and they get pissed off, not at their government, but at the people who are imposing the sanctions. I mean, it didn't work with Iran,
not working with Russia.
Hasn't worked with Russia. So it's a sort of strange, but it's obviously, it is, as you say, it's a declaration of war against an EU member state. You're declaring war against one of your own, a club member, all on behalf of a non-club member. How does that make any sense? You want to destroy a club member on behalf of somebody who doesn't even belong to your club.
Well, what does that say about even a modicum of sovereignty for a state within the European Union?
Yeah.
It says nothing. It means nothing.
Right. That's right. Okay, a vote against. It's not even saying, oh well, we don't like their LGBTQ position, or we don't like the fact that they don't have the judges. The judges are political or whatever. No, because you don't follow our policy on Kiev.
Yeah, but George, as I mentioned to you earlier in the day, I just want to be really pragmatic about this. Okay. If France and Belgium and Bulgaria, etc., feel so strongly about this issue, why don't you all independently pony up and put it in the hopper and send it to Zelensky? There's nothing stopping you from doing that.
Right.
But no, the EU wants to print money, so everybody else has to pay for it generations from now. Okay. Right. No. If this is such an imperative, then don't destroy your political union that you have. Go it alone. Go, the coalition of the willing. Okay. Yeah. What?
No, that's
I mean, am I being crazy here?
You're absolutely right, because Hungary is not stopping anyone else from coughing up money.
That's right.
You want to give your money to Ukraine. Let French taxpayers, let's see what they think about their government handing over 10 billion euros or whatever their share will be to Ukraine, and see what they think. Judging by the attitude of France's farmers, I don't think they'll be in a very good mood. Same in Germany. So that what they want to do is have this collective fund, so that no one will notice. It's just
no one will be responsible for its consequences.
Exactly. Nobody is responsible. No one notices. It's always very clever. Oh, well, it's a collective EU decision. So therefore, it wasn't us who was making this decision. So they're going after Hungary because Hungary is just saying, no, we're not going to be a party to this collective decision. And then they says, Viktor Orban, Hungary's premier, has vowed to block the use of the EU budget to provide the 50 billion euros at an emergency summit of leaders on Thursday. If he does not back down, other EU leaders should publicly vow to permanently shut off all EU funding to Budapest, with the intention of spooking the markets, precipitating a run on the country's foreign currency and a surge in the cost of its borrowing, Brussels stated in the document. So quite drastic steps. But then again, you're looking at, they obviously want to pressure individual investors, because no money is coming to Hungary anyway. I mean, it's not like the EU is giving money and they say, well, don't give Hungary any more money, because EU is not giving Hungary any money. They want us to go to German investors and say, don't invest in Hungary. You basically want to just, make the Hungarian economy scream, where they're expecting, some, German investors to come in and say, no more new investment in Hungary, and thereby shake confidence in the economy. This is quite a drastic step.
It's blackmail. This is blackmail.
Yeah, it is. And a surge in the cost of its borrowing. Oh, that's really great. So that's bring the economy to its knees. So the cost of its borrowing. And it says, the document declares that, quote, in the case of no agreement in the February the 1st summit, other heads of state and government would publicly declare that in light of the unconstructive behavior of the Hungarian prime minister, they cannot imagine that EU funds would be provided to Budapest. But again, that isn't really the issue. I mean, there are no EU funds being provided to Budapest, so it's like
Yeah, but George, unconstructive behavior. Where is that in the EU documents?
Right,
Okay,
right,
Hungary's making a sovereign decision,
right,
based upon the popular election of four
right,
times of a prime minister.
right,
I mean, where is it in EU documents where, well, you're being unconstructive? Okay,
right, right,
well, I mean, who's to say?
right. That's right. That's exactly unconstructive, because this has nothing to do with the EU.
It has nothing to do with the EU.
That's right. So, I mean, they made this into an existential matter for the EU. They made this. It wasn't Orban. They said, "Oh no, we're all in for Ukraine." Why? They never really explained why. And again, it's just saying, well, this 50 billion, we're not going to sign on to that. Particularly if Hungary is not getting any money. Hungary, which is an EU member, is not getting any money.
Well, and this 50 billion euros, presumably, it is to bolster pensions and whatnot in Ukraine. Well, why is that the EU's obligation to support an economy based on a policy that the EU has pursued since the start that has made Ukraine into this basket case? It wasn't a basket. I mean, it wasn't going great, and Ukraine has never done great, but now it is on the point of collapse because of EU, NATO / American policy. And you want Hungarians to pay for it?
Right. That's right. And again, as when you're giving alcohol to an alcoholic, how long is that going to last? I mean, you got 50 billion euros. Well, when's the next request? Because that's not going to last till much beyond Easter. We need another 50 billion euro. I mean, it's like it's a bottomless well. So,
which to point out something that I've said many times is that when you have a country like Ukraine, which is its economy essentially functions on corruption, and now you're just fueling it and making corruption even worse and more dysfunctional. And so George is right. You put in 50 billion now, it encourages this corrupt behavior and will demand another shot within months, okay? Because the money will just disappear.
Exactly. And everyone's already known this. I mean, this used to be an axiom.
Everybody knows this too. Yes,
exactly. Axiom of free market economics, that once you start going into this government to government aid, that just facilitates corruption. I mean, that's it's all about. I mean, it's not actually going to do anything economically productive. It's just going to go into the pockets of the people who are well connected. I mean, that's why that money disappears as quickly as it does. Without that funding, quote, financial markets and European international companies might be less interested to invest in Hungary. Such punishment, quote, could quickly trigger a further increase of the cost of funding of the public deficit and a drop in the currency. So that's the plan. Funding of public, drop in the currency, and that'll bring Hungary to heel.
I remember the wave when Hungary joined the EU, and I was living in Poland, and I really wish I could have a time machine and show them today. This is what you'll face. Right. You'll face blackmail.
Right.
Okay. Your sovereignty is denied.
Right.
And in the EU, which you so much want to join, will intentionally hurt your people.
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why it always strikes me being very puzzling why there are still countries that are anxious to get into the EU. Now, of course, you have bought and paid for elites who are very happy because they're going to get rich, and then they're going to go move on to some big job somewhere, at worst, a university professorship somewhere. But the Serbs who also want to join the EU, what do you think is going to happen to you? Do you really think they're going to treat you with any greater respect than they're treating the Hungarians? This is what you're going to get. Every single day, you're going to be slapped on the side of the head and say, you're going to eat that, eat that, eat that. And then one more slap before you go.
Yeah, this is like the Comic-Con.
That's right. In a sign of the rising pressure on Budapest to strike a compromise, I like the compromise. János Boka, Hungary's EU minister, said Budapest sent a new proposal to Brussels on Saturday, specifying it was now open to using the EU budget for the Ukraine package and even issuing a common debt to finance it if other caveats were added that gave Budapest the opportunity to change its mind at a later date. And of course, anything like that, that's flatly ruled out. And it says the EU document produced by an official in the Council of the EU said blah blah. It says that very high inflation, weak currency, and the EU's high level of debt servicing payments as a proportion of the GDP. It lays out how jobs and growth depend to a large extent on overseas finance. It's predicated on the high levels of EU funding. And then Brussels has wielded its financial leverage against the member states before, such as with Poland and Hungary over rule of law concerns. They should put quotes around a rule of law rather than accept that that's a genuine thing. And Greece during the Eurozone crisis, but a strategy to explicitly seek to undermine a member state's economy would mark a major new step for the bloc. Yeah,
you think? Yeah,
it's a new step.
It's so authoritarian. God.
Very, yeah.
And of course, George, it's these unelected officials that are devising.
Yeah, that's a very good point. These are unelected officials. It's like these people who are drafting this document. None of them has been elected to anything. I mean, Orban has won election after election, and you say, well, we are more important than you are. We get to decide, how we make your economy scream. 3 EU diplomats told the FT that many countries back the plan. The mood has got harsher, said one. What kind of a union do we have if we allow this kind of behavior? Another said, the stakes are high. It is blackmail. Who's being blackmailed? I mean, I'm not puzzled, but it says,
yeah, there you go. That's I just as you were, verbalizing that, I was thinking, who's on the short end of the stick here? Yeah,
exactly. It is blackmail. Boca told the FT that Budapest wanted to, quote, explore the possibility of a more constructive and European solution, and has proposed that it could support the 50 billion euro plan if it was given an annual veto on the payments. Yeah, right. Other EU countries have already refused this suggestion. Of course they did, as they fear Orban would seek to block it every year and extract further concessions. But one of the diplomats added that there was, quote, no way Orban would get a veto over funding. So you just have to accept, and that's all there is to it. That we get no way.
So it's not a union of equals.
That's right. You don't get a veto. Again, all of these are, diplomat. This is a diplomat. In other words, an EU bureaucrat, treating with contempt an elected leader. And then while 26 member states have a plan B to send money to Kiev outside the EU budget, that would require national parliament's ratification.
And possible rejection.
Exactly. Causing delays and uncertainty. And that's democracy.
And that's why when you want to join NATO, don't have a referendum.
Exactly.
Don't do it.
That's right. Causing delay. And why, they say, why is that a problem? No, it has to be done immediately. Several capitals have considered whether it's feasible to use Article 7 of the Treaty of the European Union, which would allow Brussels to strip Budapest of its voting rights, or, one diplomat said, block disbursement of money. But others have rebuffed the notion, given that it requires unanimous support, and many countries are reluctant to deploy such a serious sanction. God, what absolute bastards, that they don't want to do it. That, the countries are reluctant to deny someone else.
Well, I think it's really, I should see a show of hands out there, everyone. God, I know. So, Slovakia, where do you stand on this? Okay, Poland. Okay, all right. I mean, stand up and be recognized here. Okay, some diplomat, this is this faceless person we keep
Right.
hearing about. Okay,
Right.
so show of hands, who's for punishing Hungary? Because if you're going to do that, they will punish you one day because
Exactly. In other words,
you'll set a precedent.
exactly, because if if FICO says, well, I'm not happy about denying Hungary's voting rights. Okay, now what is it that FICO has done? I mean, we got a list of things. I think you don't vote with us, you're next. And
Yeah, and got a
they
nice restaurant here.
yeah, yeah, exactly. We can make the Slovakian economy scream too. Um, and then so that's the plan in this rules-based order, which is we're going to make the Hungarian economy free unless it does what we want it to do, and that is to sign off on this ridiculous 50 billion euro package for Ukraine. It's which again has nothing to do with the EU. But we are absolutely committed to this ridiculous notion, and we're going to punish you if you don't follow us.
This is what the EU has become. It's come to this.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. If you can't, it's all supposed to be about a union of equals, and you hash it out. Yeah, everybody knew it would take time, negotiations and consideration of all points of view. But no, just go full blown authoritarian right now. Unelected officials have determined what your country is going to do with money that your taxpayers are going to provide. Okay.
That's right. That's right.
Because all of these diplomats and bureaucrats, they're just, you waste resources on these people. They don't generate anything, any value at all.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But you want to crush an economy, crush its investment possibility, so it can't generate wealth.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So you want to impoverish them. So your punishment. So you're going to impoverish all of these people, and then your explanation is why are you impoverishing these people? Oh, because their government doesn't want to agree to the common fund going to Ukraine. I mean, how does that make any sense at all? Oh, we're going to increase the cost of borrowing. Oh, well, so people,
Well, yeah, we have to give Ukraine money because our policies have destroyed its economy. So to make sure they can stop the bloodletting, we're going to destroy the Hungarian economy.
That's right.
To save a dying economy called Ukraine.
Yeah.
So I mean, damage begets damage. I mean, failure begets failure.
Right.
Why don't you cut your losses?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. But it's I mean, it's just a striking thing. They're destroying economy of one of their own. I mean, this is supposed to be a European Union. I mean, it's like, it's a union of equals or whatever. It's supposed to be the club. So we're going to try and destroy one of our members' economy. And when the member says, well, okay, well, I'm not stopping you from sending money to Ukraine. I mean, go ahead. I mean, Germany wants to give money to Ukraine. No, we can't do that. We can't go through individual parliaments.
Well, why can't you just have a super Euro bond? And if you so believe, buy into it, buy into the bond.
Yeah.
There's no obligation to. What kind of premium can you get on? Oh, we're looking at like a 8%. That might be for financial institutions a good deal. Okay, but why do you have to saddle a country for it? I mean, have it as an open bond, a Euro bond.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways you can do this, George.
Yeah.
Raising money is not that hard. Okay. You just have to give people a reason to do it. Now, and I think we'd have to be out of your mind to want to buy a Euro bond for Ukraine. But
Right. No, I think that's a very good point. But I think they want to do it as a kind of collective decision, and make sure, hey, we all did this, we all contributed, and everybody has to be on board, and we can't go through any other way. And basically, oh well, it would take too long. We just can't wait. So complete nonsense. It wouldn't take that long. But but as you say, there are all sorts of other ways you can raise the money. But no, they have to do it in this particular form. But of course, they've been wanting to get Hungary for a long time. I mean, it just irks them to have Orban. So I was thinking, they wake up in the morning. Either what do we do to hit Russia, or what do we do to make life as difficult as possible for Hungary? I mean, that's the mentality of these people.
And after a few glasses of very fine wine, how can we hit the Russians, the Hungarians, and Trump at the same time? That would be it. That guy will get the Nobel Prize.
Exactly. That's the jackpot.
That's a jackpot right there. Super jackpot. Okay. This is just so unconscionable, George. I mean, like I said, I sound like a broken record, but I can remember when that wave of the new countries, and they were so hopeful, they were so excited, because out of the grip of the Russians, and we're going to be with the free people of the West, they're tolerant, we'll all become very, very rich. Well, it's not working out that way, and so Ukraine is the crucible for the legitimacy of the EU. That is a pretty dicey proposition.
I wonder though, do you think that the Soviet bloc was actually more tolerant for the individual differences among the member states?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't want to go into the minutia because that's what I spent a good part of my life about. But you had the nationalization of communist parties all through. I mean, in Hungary was really at the forefront of it. Okay, by the end of the Soviet Union, with the exception of East Germany, and the Germans are always a bit peculiar because they were more Soviet than the Soviets in the end.
In some ways,
okay?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. But, if I'm going to bring up names people don't know. Gomulka, for example, he was a national communist. Okay. In Hungary, we had goulash goulash communism.
Right. Okay. No, I think that's exactly right, because they allowed
Ceausescu, he got to run his Stalin regime.
So they allowed that's exactly right, because they allowed Kada to pursue that goulash communism, and a fairly tolerant atmosphere within Hungary. I mean, obviously there wasn't free speech. On the other hand, that it didn't mean that you were thrown into prison if you didn't actually toe the party line, and people were allowed to travel abroad, and so he allowed a certain flexibility.
Even in I saw the worst of the times in Poland after martial law when they suppressed Solidarność. Freedom of speech, okay, there was tons of samizdat, okay, right. And the police just they could care less about it. Okay, if you were getting money from foreigners, yeah, they did care. Okay,
right. No, that's right, exactly.
And then even in Czechoslovakia, I mean, a whole lot more tolerance. Again, there was no freedom of speech the way you and I would understand it.
Right.
But it was very much a hands off, and the beer was good. That helped.
That's right. No, that's right. And again, the interesting case was Ceausescu, because Ceausescu withdrew from the Warsaw Pact, and that wasn't really a problem. The Soviets were content with Ceausescu because he didn't actually oppose the Soviet Union. He withdrew from the Warsaw Pact, but he didn't do anything to hurt the Soviet Union.
Well, after the Romanians, their performance at Stalingrad, I think they probably thought, okay, fine.
Right. So it's actually interesting, the rigidity that imposed by the EU. In comparison with that, the Soviets were actually much more flexible and much more amenable to taking into consideration the individual differences among its members.
And also, with the EU, everything is very tightly centralized to control the member states. That wasn't the case with the Soviet Union. It was much more bilateral with all of it. So you didn't have the superstructure that was mindful, focused completely on that. No, it's very bilateral. They had different trade agreements. They had different energy agreements. Right. And for the most part, after 1968, and because there's complications with Poland in 1980, but it was, I think it's fair to say it was much more a hands-off approach.
Yeah. No,
okay? As long as you didn't leave the Warsaw Pact, as long as you didn't break the monopoly of whatever the Communist Party was called.
Yeah, I think
culturally, book banning, no. I mean,
No,
American literature, British literature was translated into Polish. Okay.
right. No, that's right. It's just a quite an interesting thing that the iron rule of Brussels, because if if this were more like the Soviet bloc, they would allow the individual differences. They say, look, here's Hungary. I mean, Hungary has its particular problems. They're neighbors with Ukraine. They've got these Hungarians who live there, 150,000 Hungarians. And Orban is a difficult person. He has an independent streak. Let's just take him into consideration. Just let him do his thing, and we'll do our thing. That's how the Soviets would have done it. But instead, no. Let's figure out all the different ways, and we'll try and hurt him.
But isn't it? I mean, I hadn't thought about this, but then again, you make me think. That's why we do these. In the Eastern Bloc, there were things that you couldn't do, but the EU is what you should do.
Yes.
You see the difference?
Right.
You have to do this.
Right.
Basically, it was basically kind of a laissez-faire thing.
Right.
Don't provoke us. Okay, just
right.
don't. Okay.
That's right.
All right.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
it's what you have to do, what you have to say.
Yeah.
And the bloc is what you shouldn't say.
Right. No, that's right. Then that's why I think that in that Soviet bloc, they did adopt an approach of as long as you don't do anything that's explicitly irks us, explicitly provocative towards us. Dubček did that in Czechoslovakia. Notch did that in Hungary. But as long as like with Kadar, with his goulash communism, and then Gomulka also had a kind of his kind of national communism, and then Gierek pursued this Western investment, led Poland to disaster, but as the Russians expected that this is going to end in disaster. But they basically, unless you actually do something to provoke us, you can just do your own thing. The EU doesn't do that. The EU says everybody has to follow the line, or you get punished. And they always have their particular. I mean, Orban is obviously the one that is number one and punished, but Fico, I think he's going to be popping up as the one to punish. And then should this Law and Justice Party return to power in Poland, which is quite possible, Kaczynski, they're gonna go after him as well.
Well, George, considering what's been happening over the last few weeks, which it's really quite extraordinary and sad at the same time, is that is the FT article that you were reciting to us. Time is the essence. We can't debate this in parliaments because, as you pointed out, there's a lot of farmers will say, "You've got to be kidding! You really got to be kidding! Really?" They're terrified of their own people, George.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. No, that's exactly right. Exactly. They could go up into Parliament and they say, "Here, let's do this." Biden or whatever. 60 billion for Ukraine, and that's exactly what I say. You have got to be kidding. We're going to give money to Ukraine. You've got nothing to give us, and you're going to give it to them. I mean, there's already all the problems about all this cheap Ukrainian grain being dumped into the EU, or the truckers and everything else. And now this is the plan. That's why they want to avoid. There just isn't any time. We have no time for parliamentary debates. No time, because there would just be public eruption of rage. I mean, it's already on the brink of almost civil war in some countries, and they're going to say, "Hey, let's give 50 billion to Ukraine."
There's a report that came out over the weekend of the crime wave that Poland is experiencing because of the status of Ukrainians residing in the country. Okay, and they've said yes. They haven't said it's a funny thing. After the last 18 months, there's been a crime wave. No, they said no. It's Ukrainians. They're the ones that have done it. Okay, all kinds of petty theft to worse things. But but maybe you should let the Polish Sejm vote on, should we continue to be supporting these people? No, I don't want to sound unkind or anything like that. I mean, if anyone would want to escape a war. That's perfectly logical. I get that. Okay. But, the EU wants to punish Ukraine for a war that it aided and abetted that never should have happened in the first place.
Yeah, that's
This,
right.
this is, we're living in we're experiencing a history that should have never been written, George.
Exactly, and this is the point. Going back to Orban, is that Orban's policy has been nothing if not consistent from the beginning.
And
He
it's
said
been
this right from the
vindicated.
start.
Vindicated.
Exactly. It's right from the start. He said this is absolutely nuts. We shouldn't be doing this. He opposed everything. He opposed the sanctions policy, every single thing he is opposed. So it's not like, oh, hey, suddenly Orban has had a change of heart. He said, no, this is going to end in disaster, and we don't want to be a part of it. And as you say, he's been vindicated. That's why he needs to be punished.
That's right.
It's
That's
only if
right.
you've been right that you
That's
need to
right.
be punished. If you've been wrong, hey, you go on to a bigger job. But if you've been right, then you have to be punished for being right.
Being right is a very dangerous thing these days. Okay. Very dangerous. I mean, if there's any politician in Europe that can say, I told you so, it's him.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
So, what was this was leaked? Okay. Right. Okay. Right. We know how leaks work.
Confidential.
Okay?
Confidential. No one has seen it. No one has seen it except us.
It could be just some kind of machination here. We don't know. Okay. It's a threat. It's scaremongering.
Oh, it's
We'll
no
see.
question scaremongering. I mean, they tried the scaremongering about the let's take away their votes, and then the Hungarians said, "Yeah, that's going to take you forever. That's a long process. So we're not scared. All right,
And everybody
well,
will
like
have
this?
to, and everyone's going to have to raise their hand,
Yeah.
okay, and say, "I was for this." Okay, I think there's maybe a ideological sentiment to do this, but do you want to put your name? You want your mugshot to this? Okay, you want to go down as part of the EU's authoritarians? Okay, you want to be in that rogue? Okay.
Right.
Okay, and I don't think so, because these people just have no courage at all. They're cowards. They're cowards. They love the status quo. They're doing well, and the hell with the farmers, because we don't need farmers, because that's retro. Okay,
That's right. Exactly.
let's eat bugs. Okay,
that's right. Exactly. We don't want all these cows, farting all over the place. That's exactly
blocking the roads and
yeah.
all of that. Okay,
yeah, exactly.
Okay. And milk is bad for you. Okay, all this, I don't know. Anyway, targeting Hungary. There is no glory in doing this. The European Union. There's no glory. There's no dignity in this whatsoever, and you betray everything that you say you claim to stand for.
That's right. That's right.
All right, everybody. This is The Gaggle with Peter and George. We're on Locals, so please go to thegaggle.locals.com. Come on, boys. Today is Monday, all day, as my father would say. And that means tomorrow afternoon, George will have his first live stream.
Live stream, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Please join me. Come with comments, criticisms, and suggestions. And on the way out the door, think about little buddy and his particular needs, because he says, yeah, I mean, my needs need to be taken care of before Ukraine's. And the most important need is that tip jar, which doesn't seem to be heading in the right direction. And so if you have a few bob in your pocket, whip them out, dunk them in his tip jar. We're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve the technology, and above all, we can, put a smile on Buddy's face. It's been a long time since we've seen that. So remember, if you like The Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye, Buddy.